Let's jump into CLO. We are going to add an avatar. I'm in the avatar library menu, and this time I'm going to add female V2. Female V2, there's not too much difference between V1 and V2 as far as I am aware, but there are more skin tones. So we're also going to add a garment, and CLO comes with garments automatically. Specifically, it comes with the t-shirts. So I'm going to add a t-shirt to her, and we are going to make this t-shirt into a collared t-shirt really quick. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is make it a bit longer and wider so it's more like an A-frame shift dress. And this is just, to get some bottoms on her. And then I am going to raise the V-neck into a circle neck, and I'm going to draft a new collar. And we are going to do a really simple collar. Nothing crazy. I'm going to try to do it in just one part. And it actually needs to be as long as the bottom of, this and half of this put together, and we're going to make a mirrored one. So I'm going to kind of throw those together so I can estimate my size, although things are going to change, especially when I lower this. So we're going to have to do some measurements too really quick. So there's no way to unify the handles. Well, of course, because this is symmetrical, the handles do unify. But like if I were going to try to unify the handles on this back into a curve, that's not possible. If I wanted to turn this corner back into a curve, I would have to right click and turn it into a curve point, which is different than a Bezier curve. But don't worry about that too much right now. Let's just make our fresh collar really quick. We're going to end up deleting these collars. And I'm just putting these together in order to kind of measure my new collar. It'll be about this length, half of this one and the whole length of this one. But we are going to draw it using the polygon tool. And I'm going to start right above this. And for my first point, instead of left clicking, normal clicking, I am going to right click. I left clicked. Right click and choose mirror and choose across the y-axis. Especially if this is a little wonky, you want to choose across the y-axis, and you can choose OK. And then this will be that, and this will be the bottom of my collar. And most, like a men's collared shirt, would have this in two parts, but we're going to try to fudge it with one part, which some collared shirts do also. So there we go. So that's going to be our collar shape. And it's a mirrored shape, which is handy. It means we're only going to have to sew it once. And we need to have an interior line that we're going to tell the system is a fold line. So I'm going to grab the interior line tool And we're going to draw a line pretty much right here where it should fold. And we just hit enter to end that line. And we only need it on one side because it automatically mirrors. Beautiful. So let's do an arrangement point. I can delete all of these, I guess, first. And then do an arrangement point on her. So we'll turn on arrangement points, select this, and then I'm going to put it on the back of her neck and kind of this outer one. Maybe we could put it on the inner one. Let's see how the inner one looks on the smaller interior rectangle. I missed. Of course. Beautiful. Okay, and we'll sew it really quick. So I am going to actually hit simulate really quick, and it'll sew the rest of the dress. And then I will sew the... Oh, it looks like the side of this has elastic on it. Maybe not. Maybe it's just how it's sitting. Interestingly, this did kind of fall in an interesting way, kind of like a collar, but I'm going to click it and choose reset 3D arrangement. And then we are going to use free sewing in order to sew this across the shoulder seam, if that makes sense. And actually, we haven't checked on any measurements, but this is going to be our first half of the line, and then I'm going to come over to here and click just once and try to... Oh no, it's sewing it all the way around. All right, we're going to have to add a segment point there, and that's not the end of the world. Let's just do some measuring really quick. So we'll come up to our rulers. Oh, these are points of measure, right? In CLO, we just have to click on the line in order to see its length. So 4.5 and 4.3. And if we like, we can actually right click and choose change length and change this to be exactly 4.5 and change this to be exactly 4.3. And I think it's updating. Four 4.3, and we'll take it from the end. Okay. And we are going to do the same here. It looks like it's about the right length because of how I estimated it, but it's not quite. So we are going to choose the add point / split line tool, and that lets us see the length on each side. So for the back of the shirt, it's 4.3. So let's focus on getting that one right. Perfect. And then this side, we will just adjust with the edit pattern tool and move it until this line is 4.5. Perfect. It can take a tiny bit of tolerance. Now that we've split the segments appropriately, we can do segment sewing, which is a little bit more straightforward. We can sew this to this and this to this. And because it's symmetrical, because the pattern is symmetrical, everything is working correctly. And we are going to hit simulate just to see how this looks. We can always reset the 3D pattern. Perfect. Now I'm going to hit stop simulation. All right. We need to tell the system that this is a fold line. So yeah, over here we had to check fold strength. Perfect. And we can leave the fold angle as normal. You can set a specific fold angle here, but I think that we will have more success using the fold arrangement line. So if we click on this line, we can then adjust the fold. Perfect. And hit simulate again, and it should kind of keep that fold angle. And you can see the fold angle over here is represented. So I think that that's easiest done with the fold arrangement tool, and you have to have applied a fold line to your garment for it to work appropriately. Yeah, but look at that, a nice collar. I bet that if we raised the particle distance or lowered the particle distance to something like 5, this collar would start to sit better. Remember also that we can always use the hand tool to adjust. So when I have the simulation going, this selection tool becomes a hand tool, and we can click and adjust on the collar. We have to get this going, simulation going, and then we can click and adjust the collar or any part of the garment as needed. Oh, I see what I did. I made the mistake of not adjusting the back to be also a shift dress. So I'll just do that really quick. I also want to talk really quickly about cutting into a garment. So like right here where there would normally on a collared t-shirt be like a line that would allow you to get your head through. I want to talk about how you would do that. You can only do it, you can only cut a hole in a garment if it's touching the edge of the pattern piece. You can't cut a hole into a pattern piece or cut a line into a pattern piece in the middle of the garment. So we're just going to draw a line really quick. Let me hit resimulate so that her dress becomes more normal. There we go. And we can tug it down. I will stop simulation. We're going to draw an interior line. We'll draw it on this piece. I'm afraid that this piece might require me to unlink the sides from editing. So that's why I wanted to get the collar on first so that we could still do linked editing. But we'll just draw a line in here and I'll hit enter. Now with the line selection tool, we'll select it, right click, and choose cut. And let's hit simulate and see if that worked. Yeah, that's all it needed. So it's still symmetrical actually. And technically a collared shirt like this would also have like a little rectangle where the buttons would go through, and we can make that super quick after this is done draping. And we can just make that using the rectangle tool, or regular rectangle, not the internal rectangle tool. And we are just going to make it exactly as long as this. And we don't need to make it very wide. And most of the time, the bottom of it is at least a little bit curved, but we will leave it as a rectangle. And any new piece that you draw shows up out in space in front of the mannequin, or the avatar. And this seam is pretty straightforward. But what we're going to do is actually play with the level of the layer of the item for the first time. So I'm going to sew it. First off, we'll just do segment sewing, sew it here, and then we only want to sew it to this side. So it is allowing us to sew it asymmetrically, so this must not be symmetrical sewing anymore, and that's okay. And then that's sewn, but if we simulated this, what we would find, and we can try it, is that this piece would end up on the outside, or it would end up moving all around, and we really don't need that. So we are going to set the layer of this to a layer lower than the layer of this piece. So we will stop the simulation. And first off, we need to find out what layer this is on. And most pieces are on layer 0 at the beginning. So we're looking in simulation properties in the property editor. And this is on layer 0. And that's fine. And because we can actually, I believe, make this on layer -1. We could also make it on layer 0 and then the shirt on layer 1. But as long as we're telling it what order of operations to put all of these in, it should be helpful. Okay, so we'll put that on layer -1, and it gives us this error message. It says, when layers are applied to patterns, they will be indicated in fluorescent green. Once garments are draped, you don't have to do this anymore. And I find that that's true some of the time, but some of the time it can be helpful to keep them on -1 until you're like ready to take the screenshots, essentially, or the simulations. So I'm going to hit simulate and see it's shrinking back behind the garment. Beautiful. Yay! Okay, so now that it's draped, what it's saying is basically that we could change this back to 0, which is the standard, and that this should look good. Perfect. Technically, I think we could sew a tiny line here And we could sew the bottom of this to this tiny line, if that makes sense. I think actually the bottom of this is lower, isn't it? Oh yeah, no, that's where it is. Perfect. And so we'll just do segment sewing. Perfect. So that is sewn. I just accidentally started a new line there. So technically that will now be tacked down to the bottom. Yeah, so there's our little quick collared shirt. Thank you for watching. As always, let me know if you have any questions about this video.